Cisco System CSCO, Beginner's Guide. If you have ever opened a laptop at school, joined the Wi-Fi at an office, or watched a Netflix show stream without freezing, there is a very good chance a Cisco Systems product was quietly doing the work in the background. Cisco builds the boxes, chips, and software that move data around the world, the plumbing of the internet. This guide is purely educational, just to help you understand what the business is before you start your own research. So, what does Cisco actually do? Cisco sells 5 main things, and the easiest way to remember them is by what each one does for a customer. The biggest piece, about 50% of revenue at $28 billion a year, is what they call networking. This is the hardware that connects computers to each other. Think switches and routers, the small gray or black boxes in a server room that direct data traffic the way a traffic cop directs cars at an intersection. It also includes Wi-Fi gear and optics, the laser-based components that send data through fiber optic cables. The second piece, about 14% of revenue at $8 billion, is security, the software and hardware that keeps hackers out of a company's network. This category got a lot bigger when Cisco bought a company called Splunk for $28 billion, which brought in a tool called SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. Basically a giant dashboard that watches everything happening on a network and flags anything suspicious. Then there is collaboration at 7%, that is WebEx, the video conferencing app you may have used in school or at work. Observability at 2% is monitoring software that watches whether business apps are running well. And services at 27% is the big stable layer of maintenance, training, and consulting that Cisco wraps around all the products it sells. Now here is the key thing about how the business actually flows. Cisco does not own factories. They design the products in-house, including their own custom chips, and then they hire contract manufacturers, companies like Foxconn and Flex that make stuff for many tech brands, to physically build the hardware. The custom chips, branded Silicon One, are fabricated at TSMC, the giant chip foundry in Taiwan. Cisco also makes its own coherent optics through a subsidiary called Acacia. On the other side, the customers are split into a few big buckets: hyperscalers, which is the industry word for the giant cloud companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google; enterprises, meaning large regular companies refreshing their office networks; telecom and internet service providers; governments; and a newer category called neoclouds, smaller cloud builders focused on artificial intelligence. Added up, and Cisco runs at about $63 billion in annual revenue, with $31 billion of that already locked in as ARR, annual recurring revenue, the part that renews each year like a subscription. So who does Cisco compete with, and how does it win? Our company's flat report rates the moat, the competitive advantage, the thing that keeps other companies from catching up, as narrow. Translated, that means Cisco does have real defenses, but they are not unbreakable. Here is what they have going for them. First, the installed base. Cisco gear is already running inside almost every large company on Earth, and ripping it out is not just a hardware swap. You would have to redesign the entire network, retrain the IT team, and recertify all the security setups. That is a huge switching cost, the time, money, and risk a customer would have to swallow to leave. On top of that, the Silicon One custom chip strategy means Cisco controls more of its own supply chain than many rivals. Management actually pointed out during a recent supply crunch that they had no decommits, meaning every order shipped while competitors were stuck. Second, the Splunk acquisition pushed Cisco deep into the customer security operations center, the team that watches for cyber attacks, and that software is sticky and high margin. Newer AI-era products like Hypershield and AI Defense extend that platform further. But the moat is rated narrow for a reason. In high-end cloud data center switches, Cisco competes with Arista. In pure security software, they go up against Palo Alto Networks and CrowdStrike. In the new AI backend networking world, they face NVIDIA, which sells a competing networking product called SpectrumX. And there is a constant threat from cheaper white box switches, generic hardware running open source software, that nibble at the low end. Networking as a market only grows about 4 to 6% a year, so Cisco has to keep winning new fights to grow faster than that. What are the key drivers for the business over the past 5 years? Three forces have driven the business over the last 5 years, and they're worth understanding because they tell you where the company is heading. The first is the software and subscription transition. Cisco used to be almost entirely a hardware company. You bought a switch, you owned it, and Cisco booked one big sale. Now 49% of revenue is recurring subscriptions, and ARR is at $31 billion. The Splunk acquisition was the accelerant. It added more than $3 billion of high-margin software revenue overnight. Recurring revenue is more predictable, which investors generally like, though the transition does create some bumpy moments when customers shift from on-premises software to cloud versions. The second force, and probably the most exciting one right now, is AI networking. When companies like Microsoft and Amazon build giant data centers full of AI chips, those chips need extremely fast networking to talk to each other, otherwise AI model training slows to a crawl. Cisco's AI orders from hyperscalers jumped from about $2 billion in fiscal 2025 to a $9 billion target in fiscal 2026, more than 4 times bigger in 1 year. Their Silicon One chips and Acacia optics have shipped more than 750,000 of the 400 gigabit ports and over 40,000 of the newer 800 gigabit ports. Those numbers refer to how much data each port carries per second. The third force is the more mundane but very steady one, the campus refresh cycle. Tens of billions of dollars worth of older networking gear, called Catalyst 4K and 6K, are reaching end of support, which means companies have to upgrade. Cisco sells them the new Catalyst 9000 line and Wi-Fi 7 access points. A Cisco survey of 3,500 IT leaders found 93% are accelerating modernization because AI traffic across networks is tripling. That base layer of upgrade demand is reliable, high margin, and very Cisco. To wrap up, so if you remember one sentence about Cisco, it should be this: Cisco builds the networking, security, and AI infrastructure plumbing that runs the world's enterprise computer networks, with about half of that already locked in as subscription revenue. As a learner, things worth keeping an eye on include the AI hyperscaler order trajectory through fiscal 2027, the rollout of the Silicon One P200 and G200 chips, and how Splunk continues to integrate into the broader security platform. This is an educational guide only, not investment advice. The goal is to help you understand the business so you can do your own research from a better starting point.